Welcome to the Wealthy Actor Podcast. I'm Valerie Hubbard, an industry veteran with 25 years dedicated to helping actors navigate the business side of their craft.
And I'm James Hallett, a fellow lifelong actor and coach, joining Valerie on this journey.
Here on The Wealthy Actor, we're diving deep into the stories and insights of actors from all walks of life.
We'll be unraveling the threads of success, failures, and everything in between.
So if you're ready to embark on a journey beyond the footlights, join us as we sit down with fascinating actors, industry experts, and thought leaders to uncover the secrets of becoming a truly wealthy actor. I'm Valerie Hubbard.
And I'm James Hallett.
And this is the Wealthy Actor Podcast, where the art of acting meets the business of building a truly prosperous life in the spotlight. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Wealthy Actor. I'm Valerie Hubbard with my brand new microphone. And seated next to me is my dear friend.
Hey, Val, it's James Hallett here. Your microphone, for those who are listening in with headsets, they don't get to see that Valerie's microphone changes color.
And I have a new picture behind me.
Oh, that's so cool.
I know, from Poland. We'll talk about it later. But
God,
first,
awesome.
We need to introduce our guest. Okay, so our guest today is Miss Donna Jo Thorndale, one of my dear friends. She's also an actress, a voiceover artist, and a nonprofit consultant with over 30 years experience in the nonprofit world. She first began working behind the mic in 1988 at WRFL-FM, an independent radio station she helped found in Lexington, Kentucky. I bet you they played some good music. In addition to 5 years as an on-air DJ, which is what we call her, DJ. She served as the station's PR director and the first female general manager. Woohoo! Her passion for theater led her to Los Angeles, where I met her, where she became a member of the Actors Gang, Tim Robbins' artistic director, serving as the lead teacher in their prison project, really cool, for over 12 years as the co-assistant director of the education department. Her dedication to social justice issues inspired her to create All Cake, No File, the Johnny Cash Prison Tribute Cooking Show. And Shira Piven directed that. We're all from Chicago, so we know Shira, which she performed in California state prisons and at the Actors Gang, where it enjoyed a sold-out 8-week run. This led her to join the team of punk rock radicals at Jail Guitar Doors, where she currently works as a developmental professional, having successfully raised over $4 million in grants within the past 3 years. Donna Jo is dedicated to making positive, disruptive change wherever and whenever it's needed, like in right now. She can be reached at tinysmilecreative@gmail.com, and that will also be in the show notes. Welcome. I read your long bio because you deserve it.
Oh, you all are the sweetest. It's such a pleasure to be with the two of you and with everyone else this morning. I'm, pardon my cough, I'm looking really forward to this conversation and to just the exchange of ideas and perspectives today. I think this is I think it's going to be a power hour.
I believe it will be too. So what I didn't hear as much of, I did hear about the show, the Johnny Cash tribute, but you've produced a lot more. I mean, tell us about Jewel Ray, because that's who I know very well.
So Jewel Ray Jeffers is my alter ego. She is she's a character that I play that's a recovering celebrity chef. So the character claims to, eschew the limelight and the attention. And she had a TV show, but it went off the rails because she was too political. She had a big mouth, got her in trouble. So therein lies her rub of like still seeking all that attention, but acting like she doesn't want it. So she's a fun character to play, but she plays a home economist, a chef who is out to change the world through food. And it's so steeped in my own life because I grew up in a home that I was surrounded by music and comedy And my mom really thought that food equaled love and, that kind of nurturance. If you can bring people together, this is seriously, my life motto. If you can bring people together through humor, specifically live performance. My love of theater began as a 5-year-old as a cheerleader. I love that energetic exchange of a live interaction. But I feel if you can bring people together through humor and food and music, we can break down so many barriers. And isn't this a prescient time that we need to be united against a lot of bad forces, and we need to see that we are one another's, keeper, our sisters and our brothers keeper, and there is no other here. Us equals them. So whatever happens to one of us can happen to all of us. So yeah, so that's how Jewel Ray was sort of born out of that ethos. And I always cook live. It began, at Bang Studios here in Los Angeles many years ago as another show called Taste Like Home that I did a live improvised cooking show. And I was kind of myself or my mom, kind of on hyperdrive with a little frosted lipstick and like a bejeweled sweater. And Joel Ray I knew I was teaching in prison with the Actors Gang at the time, and I knew I wanted to do something for that population. And because truly the only thing that separates most of us from the people who are serving prison terms is that we didn't get caught when we were in the middle of our mess, or we had some privilege around being able to afford counsel or whatever the case may be. Um, but
Or
so
just privilege in our skin color.
yeah, that's the big one, white, right?
Yeah,
White,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, privilege of the skin color. So
Yeah.
um, so I knew I wanted to do something of that nature. And one day, in the Norco prison, there was a gentleman who was getting ready to parole, and he had missed 5 of his son's last birthdays. And he said,
Mm.
and his name was Richard. I'll never forget it. Seared into my brain. He had a big tattoo, LA, on the side of his head. But he said, I don't want to miss one more slice of birthday cake.
Mm.
And when he said that, I knew cake was at the center of what I was doing. And many, many of these men who were incarcerated at Norco had talked about how they hadn't had cake for as long as they'd been incarcerated.
Mm.
So I knew, and I was very inspired, of course, by Johnny Cash. And then it just came to me. I was like, I'm going to make, and my mom's a great home baker. So I was like, I'm going to make cakes. I'm going to take them into prison. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to see if I can bring in some music. So All Cake, No File was born. And my friend Corby Gallegos, who's a phenomenal actor and instructor and actually a teacher at the Waldorf School in Altadena, unfortunately, and he and his wife, Christy, dear friends of mine, lost their home in that fire. But
Mm.
at any rate, he had this beautiful deep voice and was a hell of a guitar player. And so he started a little band called With a Bible and a Gun, and it was a Johnny Cash prison tribute band. And so yeah, so that's how it all came about. And then we started going in, and he got to actually play with some of the boys that were in the prison praise band that they had. They will allow, in so many incarcerated spaces, they allow in arts programming and music programming and whatnot if it's in the chapel and if it's fueled through, the prison ministry. So so Corby was able to go in for like 5 or 6 weeks before our performance and practice with the gentleman who played in the praise band, and then we rocked out. It was a lot of fun, but we played there
That is
numerous
so
times.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, really
Yeah.
fun.
Wow. I mean, so this is a side note, but I have a friend who started the Geese Theater Company in England. He had
Wow.
worked on the Geese Theater here in the United States, and then took that and started the Geese Theater of the UK, and they're similarly they're a company that takes theater and drama and works with the inmate population. Um,
Well, I will say this, people who are experiencing incarceration are some of the most creative people one will ever meet. And these are people who are improvisers and problem solvers, and, where there's a will, there's a way kind of thing. And I find that, so those of us as artists and actors, as we make our way in that professional stream, while we often have some supplemental income, being a teaching artist is a phenomenal way to earn a decent living. Most teaching positions pay at least 35 an hour, if not, many begin at 50. And I think the national average for a teaching artist is somewhere between 65 and 95. So it can be a wonderful way to stay in your craft, share your craft,
Mm.
and be a part of, I mean, it's what I love about theater. It brings us back to our humanity. I remember many years ago when I started working with Joyce Piven, who recently passed away, bless her heart. Um, Incredible, improvisation innovator and teacher. And she, with her husband Byrne, had the Piven Theater Workshop in Evanston that still runs today. And then, of course, she has her children, Shira and Jeremy, both of who are artists in their own rights. Um, well, I forgot my train of thought. Where was I headed with that?
You said years ago when you started studying with Joyce,
When
what
I
did you
when
learn?
I started working with Joyce, one of the things that Joyce always promoted was that the other person is the recipe. And so
Can you
that
say that
really is like
again? Can you say
the
that
other
again?
person. Yeah, the other person is the recipe. So whatever you're cooking up on stage, right? And in the rules of improvisation, we know it's always about our partner. It's making our scene
Yes.
look good. When they look good, we look good, right? And so
Yeah.
literally we just keep, pushing one another higher and higher. And I was married at the time, and I remember my then husband said to me, when I talked about the work, he said, "You talk about it almost like it's a religion." And I was like, you know what? It really kind of is, because there's a deep spiritual core in experiencing the full breadth of our humanity. And when we're in the full breadth of our emotions, when we have access, this is, I think, at least for me, this is my goal as an actor, is to continually excavate the interior life of who I am, so I can bring so many more colors to the characters I play, to the roles I audition for. Even if it's, you're in a commercial and you don't have a speaking line or what have you, that investment in you being present, me being present, as actors, us being present to the moment, that's where the real gold lives. And so this being in the moment, this having full access to our instrument, not only our physical bodies, our intellectual life, and our emotional life, which, the work I did with the Actors Gang, it's all commedia dell'arte, but driven by emotional states.
Yeah.
So when the states are there and the stakes are high, you don't, everything else falls away,
Yeah.
and so being a teaching artist for an underserved population or in an after school program, I've always found it gave to me far more than I ever gave to it. And, for the first 4 years I taught in prison, we did it all for free, because we knew the power of art, the power of theater to
Mm.
connect us to our humanity, to let our differences drop away, and to be in a state of play and
Yeah.
joy and discovery together.
Did you ever come with me to wash feet? I think you did one time, right?
I sure did. Yes, ma'am, I did.
Yes. So, every Good Friday we would wash feet down at Skid Row.
Mm.
And that had that effect where you're below them and you're washing their feet and you're taking care of them and you're sending them love, and it puts you on an even footing with everyone, because there's this like, I need to feel better than you, I need to be doing better than you, and it's also a very American thing. I think it's a very American thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the striving and the status game that we all
Yeah,
contend
I
for.
think a lot of
You
other
know,
countries are a lot more relaxed.
I would agree
Yeah,
with
and
that.
and also I think that we we exist in such a place of privilege,
Yes.
and and that to be stuck in the I want to do better, I want to do better, I want to make more, I want to make more,
Mm,
when we are in such a place of privilege,
mhm.
means that we are actually never encountering the other in the community, in the world, right? We're never, like, if that's where we're stuck, then we're never really in that place of the other person is the recipe, which is what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're never there
Yeah.
if we're stuck in this sort of lack, I need place.
It makes me think, James, that inspires me the way you just phrased that, because it makes me feel like the real privilege is for us to humble ourselves before one another. And, Valerie, like the feet washing thing goes right back to it. Like, we're in service to one another. And
Yes.
I don't know that there's an actor that ever, tread the boards, or, that was in the caravan that traveled around doing shows from town to town. Like, in, at least in the tradition in Italy, often, these traveling caravans, they were paid in bread because they needed food, right? So when we talk about bread and we talk about dough as money, it's like it's literal sustenance, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a wonderful thing for us to be. I mean, theater really is. It's my drug of choice, and acting is my church. That's my cathedral. It's where, it's where I feel the spiritual resonance, because I'm in my body, I'm in my emotions, and more importantly, I'm in you, because I'm connected to you. Whether you're doing a monologue on stage, right, and you're like solo, but it's the energy of what you send to the audience and the audience receiving you, and that energy coming back. Or if it's your scene partner and they are the recipe, right? We're investing in the other. And when we do that together, it's like an epic love affair. Who would ever want to leave it? That's why it's so hard to leave, small dark theaters where you have an audience of 20 people. That's some of the best magic in the world you'll see in that space.
Yeah, I want to follow up because so everything you're saying, Donna Jo, I'm like, oh man, I want to talk to her. Like
And
everything you're
yet
saying,
here we are talking.
like I know. I'm like, oh God, I want to sit down and talk with her. This is so so exciting. One of the great lessons that my teacher at Yale taught was, he said, leave your emotions alone. Don't play your emotions. Focus your attention on the other person,
Yeah.
so that in a sense you're playing their instrument and they're playing your instrument.
Woo!
Dude, that is good.
And when we
Write
do
that down, everyone.
and when we do that, then we do open ourselves up to the complete unknown of receiving,
Mm-hmm.
because we're open. We clean ourselves out, and are receptive, because we're focused on the other person and they're focused on us. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when things really ignite, you know.
I think it was the great Viola Spolin that said the state of not knowing is higher than the state of knowing.
Hmm.
Mm.
The great improviser who created all of those Spolin theater games in
And we're all
Chicago.
from Chicago. We're all from
Yeah,
Chicago, where where all this
yeah.
stuff started.
The
Well,
Yeah.
actually,
birthplace.
she's from Kentucky, but she
Oh, you're
acts like
from,
she's
oh,
from
yes,
Chicago.
you do act like
Oh
You're
yeah,
Chicago. Yeah.
actually from Chicago, and I went to college there.
yeah. I'm
Yes.
not. I'm
Yeah.
not from Chicago. I'm
But
from.
she acts like it.
But yeah, but you have you have Chicago energy in you, which I regard as a very high statement.
No, I see someone put in the chat. Oh, church. Seriously. Well, it really is, like, to me, theater and acting, it's the living water, right? It's
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit.
Well, it was all born out of ritual anyway, so there is a spirituality and a ritualness to it. I mean,
It's sacred. It's our
who is
sacred
it, like
space.
Christian Bale when he lost his shit, on set or whatever? It's like, yeah, man, sometimes that happens. I've been there, like where a set photographer, this guy, this big actor, was in the middle of this dramatic monologue moment in this movie I was in, right? And the set photographer's like this, right? And all of a sudden he's just like, get the fuck away,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
But it's because he was doing something that was very spiritual and very, yeah, I mean, that's what I love about acting, because I had experiences where I lost myself in the role, like when I went to Poland and all those things. So, that's from Poland.
It's
Mm.
beautiful.
When I was,
Stunning.
yes, my new poster, when I was there in 1986. You look
Yeah.
so cute.
You're a grounded Witkowski girl.
Are you in your house, Donna Jo?
I am, yes.
It looks beautiful.
Oh,
It does.
thanks.
It looks beautiful. What else? What do you want to
So,
know?
so Donna Jo, there's so much to talk to you about. Um, for those people who don't know, Donna Jo has also done podcast webinar with the VO Dojo, which is on YouTube, which I listened to before this session. And
Mhm.
and Donna Jo, you talked a lot about your work in fundraising and the idea
Mm.
of grant writing, and um, and I don't want to have you repeat everything. You covered an enormous amount of content in that, but if you could talk about where we are in our country in terms of like people may have this fear that everything is shutting down and and
Mm.
nothing is available, and how do I get work, and
Mhm.
what do I do if money is drying up in the
Mm.
in the places where you have usually gotten money. So how would you speak to someone who's in that place of panic?
Well, let me just begin by saying I'm going to invite all of us collectively to take a deep breath, because a lot of things are being turned upside down right now. We all know this, whatever, your opinions are about that. But the great news is, now is the time that artists are so needed. Now is the time that digging into our acting skills and honing our abilities to deliver a message, that's a very important skill to have as an artist. So the good news is, whatever state you're in, I don't know if there are people here who are in Europe or other places that, where the government subsidizes artists. There may be some of you, but if you're in the United States, which I assume most people on this call, oh, someone's from the Netherlands, right? Which thinking about coming over there. So, but I would say if you're in the United States, every state in the nation has an artistic fund. In California, we have the California Arts Council, and they provide direct grants to artists. It is competitive, but there is money out there. And there's a number of avenues that artists can pursue to create work, to get technical assistance. For example, if you're building out your voiceover booth at home, or perhaps like Valerie, you're running a podcast, and you may need some technical equipment. So you've got to get savvy and a little down and dirty, but I've never known an artist who wasn't, right? So there are funding streams to look at on a state level. On a federal level, most of the federal money is a little tricky when it comes to grants. However, most of monies that have been delivered federally to states have a lock on those. So we don't need to panic too hard. In many ways, there was a Republican administration many years ago with George Bush Jr. when he came in. People, and this was post-Clinton, and people were really nervous about, money being gutted away. And really what happened was things that were arts-based became a public safety or a public good grant. So you're talking about the same thing. You do a little bit of code switching, right? So you talk about your work, you just talk about it slightly differently, like how you explain the experimental project you're working on to your best friend is not how probably you're going to explain it to your parents or your grandparents, right? So we're going to package things just a little differently right now. And we're going to talk about, that this project, if it involves, I don't know what, let's say it involves something that you're going to do free out in the public or at the public library. You can talk about doing free programs for the public. You can talk about doing something, that appeals to students after school. Like there's many ways you can talk about, how this project is going to marry these certain themes in society and how important they are. Um, so you can look at state funding, you can look at corporations will often have funding. And then like in many places, there's a women's league or a small, what am I trying to say? Not a nonprofit, but like a small civic group that
Yeah.
many churches will provide, funding. So we don't need to panic. I think panic is the last thing we need to do, because we all know to be in that flow state and to create, we need to be regulated and relaxed. So
Yeah.
I would
And can I
really
say something about that?
jump
I mean,
in.
it's
Yes,
also
Valerie,
like
jump in.
we do have actually, it's over half the people here are from another country, just so you know, that are here live with us. So we have a big audience all over. But what I wanted to say is like, it's like, oh, now I'm going to lose my train of thought, but it's what one thing that really stuck out to me what you just said was about reframing the way you speak to someone, because I think that that's such an important thought that you just introduced. And then also just funding and flow, because the truth is that when there's turmoil, art always explodes. So it's about, I think that for everyone, not just artists, but I think the payment, the way we get paid is going to change. And
Say more, say more.
well, I think that there's, already like I went to London, right? I go to London every year, right? But I missed the year before. Well, I went this year, like normal. I get cash at the airport. No one takes cash in London. It's totally cashless, right? And I hadn't been there in 2 years, so I didn't know.
Mm.
Right. And, and so just that alone, like, remember when they were hoping you'd pay cash, right? And now, anyway, you know, and how banks are beginning to hold money longer, right? And things like that. So I think that what it does is when someone puts a beaver puts a dam in a stream, it makes the stream go a different way.
Yes.
Right. And so it's just what's happening in the acting world, right? Like, well, if I can't make $100,000 a year without being non-union, what am I going to do if I have to feed my kids from my acting business? And I'm going to have to figure out a way to be non-union, right? If I want to, because everything that's paying. So it's a breakdown of systems. And so therefore it's really pushing us to do it a different way. And I think the grant thing and getting that is great. I think that's
and I feel that it's also a wonderful time to create our own work. There's no time like the present. And Valerie,
yes.
many years ago, you said to me, because I look the way I look and I'm from Kentucky, you said to me, you're going to work a lot. That was back in 2016 when we had a presidential change. And sure enough, and even last week, I got an audition for a Karen type.
Oh yeah, I get those all the time.
And and so I think more and more now, and because we are deeply concerned globally, because there's globally so much going on, I think two things are occurring in the art world. We need art that makes us look at what's happening politically. And then we need a lot of fluff. I just started that new show that's so good called Mid-Century Modern.
Yeah.
And it's with Nathan Lane, it's a laugh riot. And this is a time when it's such a sobering time because
Yes.
we can't get around the fact that people are being whisked off the street. We can't get around the fact of what's going on economically with the market. That this isn't something that's happening to other people. That's why I say again, them equals us.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening in the Middle East affects us. That's why we care about diseases around the world, because we live in a global world now. There's almost no place on this planet that one can't travel to. We just saw the cadre of ladies go up, to the edge of space or whatever. You're like, we can go anywhere. And if we want to go anywhere and everywhere safely, we have to be aware of not just how I'm doing, I have to be aware of how you're doing. The other person is the recipe. I want to make sure that people in Mozambique, aren't spreading whatever disease is ravaging their communities.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're only as strong as the weakest person on your boat. That's what I learned in church.
Mm.
I don't know what happened to that.
And we're all in that boat.
Yeah, we're all in the boat.
Yeah, we're all in the boat together.
That's what I learned. Oh, we're in the boat. You got to take care of the person that's
We
suffering.
want to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And so that goes back again to theater games and community and theater. when we do Spolin games, we're in a circle. When someone else joins, we don't elbow and block them out. We take one step back and make room so the circle grows. It
Yes.
reminds me of that, oh, I'd like to teach the world to sing in
Sing
perfect
in perfect
Perfect
Coca-Cola.
harmony.
And they're
harmony
like in a circle and everyone's holding hands. It was an old commercial in the 70s,
for Coca-Cola, right?
dating myself.
Yeah.
Yes, for Coca-Cola.
Hey, listen,
Well,
everyone, ask questions if you want to ask questions. Donna Jo is got a lot of stuff to say, so ask her. She'll tell you.
clearly, but no, but so the Coca-Cola, as we called it in the
Yeah.
South, but
Okay.
it's really true. We're a collective, we're a circle. So
Yes.
this goes into the mindset of being a wealthy actor in spirit. One of the things that I have a little pet peeve about is when one goes to an audition and people give one another icy looks, like, oh, she's my competition or he's my competition. And it's like, hey, man, this is a big pie. There's enough, we don't need to hoard. We don't need to be have that lack scarcity mindset, James, that you were just speaking of.
Yeah.
There's enough here for all of us. And this is a little goal, but I truly believe you don't get anything that doesn't already have your name on it. So when Valerie lands a role that I really wanted, she didn't take it from me. It was Valerie's to have, right? And I
Mhm.
know that my due is coming, right? What is right for us comes to us, will attract us. And when I miss a role and I thought I really wanted it and Val booked it, and then she calls and she says the director was a nightmare, Deej. I know then and there I'm like, whoo, dodged a bullet. So every role that comes up that one falls in love with, we don't want them all, right? Now,
Mm.
I'm not to say that occasionally you haven't been, bilked out of a role. That's happened to me once or twice. But, at the end of the day, I just feel when I keep my mindset in a more positive space, that what I'm here for and what I'm seeking is also here and seeking me. It's just a vibrational and an alignment thing. And when we can relax and be in flow together, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, and you talked about being present. You referred to that sort of that moment of like being present where we are. And I think that really when we return to the present, we we let go of the things that we don't have,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually embrace the riches of the now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I agree with you about you also talked about like the sort of um, like we never know why we never know in the greater sense why something didn't need to come to us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can get caught in the place of like things aren't, why didn't I book that, why didn't I get that? And
And
it's
especially, when we
yeah.
have tough economic times, and it's like, not only do I love this role or whatever I'm reading for, auditioning for, not only do I love the role, I really need the work. Like, this is real. Like, this is our livelihood. And that's why I think, Valerie, what you really walk, eat, live, and breathe in the approach of the Actors Fast Track. It's so valuable for us to recognize, that the game is changing and that, one person's way in is not the next person's way in. So never lose faith. And yeah, and James, it does go back to the mystery of like, we don't know why. And I'm certainly not going to set myself on why didn't I book that role 3 years ago, or I'll just keep firing that back up. And then I feel poorly about myself as an artist. And that's not necessary.
Yeah.
No. So it's not helpful. Let me say that it's not helpful. So that's
Mhm.
why I think having this conversation is so inspiring to me today, because it really is about, how I have this visual for how I want to live my life, which is like a round wheel with one hand reaching up and one reaching down, and it just constantly spins. So today I may be reaching up, looking at James to say, hey, give me a hand up on this. And he coaches me or whatever he does, and he gives me a hand up and I go up. And then tomorrow I may glance over my shoulder and James may be saying, I need grant information, give me a hand up. And then I pull James. So when we're available to help and also there to serve, like we just all go higher. So,
I love that, and so I have a philosophy of angels, which is
mm,
that we are invited to be an angel all the time, and we sometimes say yes, and we sometimes
yeah,
say no.
yep.
Like you're doing something, you're on the street, and someone comes up to you and says, um, you know, do you know where such and such is? Or you see someone holding a map, right? And you have an opportunity. You can either say, do you need help? Can I help you to find your way? Or we can say no.
Hmm.
And that in those moments we're becoming an angel for a moment.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm. And
That's good.
that's really good. I should have put. I almost put a like a yellow legal pad by me. I almost put one today, and I was like, no, don't. You want to be really present. I want to write down things, James, that you just said.
Well, we have a recording for that reason.
Right.
And that is beautiful. Like we have this opportunity to be an angel, and we also can remember, in our being helpful, especially if you're a recovering people pleaser, just blink at me if you know what I mean. If you're a recovering people pleaser, we don't want to do for others what they should do for themselves, because then that takes their dignity from them and it doesn't give us the boundary of staying in our own lane and taking care of our own stuff.
Mm,
I can tend sometimes to be a little helpful, and sometimes it's overly helpful. And
mm,
it's like, okay, I need to keep my eye on my own work so that I'm meeting my standard. It doesn't mean don't go around being an angel. Yes, do, right? But that there are those of us who are givers, and I think we must remember, uh, sometimes an angel
to
is
receive.
show up and sometimes a devil needs to show up. So you have to decide, is this my devil? I like to say I'm a negative influence with a positive outcome. So do you need the devil? Do you need the angel?
Yeah, often it's the devil that shows up for me that gets me to the other side. Unfortunately. Mhm.
We all need a good trickster. Like I mean, we
My
all.
trickster can take a break.
Yes, that's a good one. All right, do we have questions or do we want to just keep? I haven't
Well,
been
I don't know, a lot of
chatting.
chat in the chatter box, but no questions in the Q&A. You guys ask some questions. Go on, do it. Do it. We'll keep talking.
Yeah,
Uh
or we can just keep talking. I want to
yeah.
say it's just so lovely to see people here from around the world. Oh, Shaya Boudmont, I want to come to France so desperately. So I'm trying to manifest this life, you guys. I'm going to share this with you all. I want to manifest this life that can have my voiceover travel with me, so I can be global,
Mm.
book all over the world, and because there's a theater company I want to work with in France that the Actors Gang is founded on Ariane Manouchkin's company, Théâtre des Soleils
Ah,
Wow.
in
I have a
Paris.
couple of clients in France.
Well, good to know. And I
Yeah.
see
And the
someone.
Netherlands, so the Netherlands is a good place. You just mentioned that prior.
I just saw that if you start a business
Yes.
and invest 4 or 5 grand in it, that there's this pathway to the Netherlands. So, as global citizens and global artists, I think it's so important for us to be able to travel to increase our perspective. And I want to manifest this life that's divided between LA and Mexico City and Paris. Or who knows, maybe I'll end up in the Netherlands. But it's just so wonderful to see, everyone on here.
It would be
And
so good to sit in a cafe with you in Paris. I would love that. I would
well, when we
so,
do that, and we will
yeah,
do that,
which we will do.
we will
You,
do that. Yeah.
you said something um, about manifestation, and it reminds me of something you said about um, like in the talk you did with Tish, you were talking about um, sort of writing the grant proposal, and that you have something you want to fund, and
Mhm,
you're looking at speaking to someone else about, like framing it in a way that's acceptable to them.
mhm.
Um, and that it really struck me. Like I loved your description of that. And I feel like there's something to tie it in with too, with like starting a business with manifesting, with moving where you want to move. Um, how do you like what step do you take when you want to bring something into being? Like how do you conceptualize it?
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no,
It's
no, no.
now that I have
I think you get what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do get what you mean. And if I don't, you just let's course correct and we'll get there. Um, but so, excuse me, I'm getting over a little cough. So, in the world of Walt Disney, there is this theory of a blue sky version. And the blue sky version means if there were no obstacles, right?
Right.
The whole like if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do sort of question. But a blue sky version is like, okay, we're going to imagine this project we want to work on or this, whatever it is, this thing you want to achieve. Whether that's moving out of, your parents' home and getting your own place, whether that's, up leveling all of your marketing materials as an artist or rebranding yourself as an artist or, moving to France so you can study at Théâtre des Soleil or whatever it is, right? So I like to start with the blue sky version. And this is very interesting, James. I hadn't thought about this. I start with the blue sky version, but I also start, which I think is why I've been successful as a grant writer, because all grant writing is really, it's just storytelling. And as an actress and a creative writer who's written a lot of my own work, and, I've been a writer my whole life, whether it was poetry or plays in high school and whatnot. And then again, on into college and then in my professional life as an actress. But I like to ask not only the blue sky version of this project I want to create, but I like to envision the biggest impact it can have, who it can reach, and what it will do for them.
Mm.
So because I'm a Virgo, earth sign of service, I'm always going to be the water bearer, the water pourer. I'm always wondering if you're thirsty, I'm gonna fill your cup, right? So if I take that into my acting work and I say, all right, I've got this one woman show. And then I'm like, yeah, she's a character, but I love ensemble work. I don't want to play alone. I don't need a one woman show. I've done several. I don't need that. Even though there is a project I want to do that is a one woman show, but it also involves my mother and I want to play her. But at any rate, maybe I'll tell. And Valerie, I think you know this story. Uh, the night that my mother decided I was killing myself because my phone in my purse tripped and sort of auto dialed my mother, and she listened in while I was in a rehearsal for an improvisational soundscape show that we were doing in the dark. And so my mother heard like when the Civil War battlefield, and then she heard us going to the, into the ER, and someone was doing the like beep, beep, and then you discover someone's having a baby and you hear all of those sounds, right? So my mother overhears this and decides from Kentucky
This is hilarious.
that Donna Jo has decided to kill herself because her life is a wreck and she's not going anywhere as an actress and her weight is up and down and she's getting a divorce. I told her she should have never married him. On and on and on, you all, until my mom calls the cops in Versailles, Kentucky, who patch her through to Los Angeles, and the LAPD sends out cop cars to go searching for Donna Jo because she's drunk in an alleyway and she's killed herself with pills and she's called her mother to say goodbye, even though I never spoke my mother's. I mean, you guys, anyway, so I do want to do that show, but I want to.
You must.
Oh my
You
God.
must.
But so I love doing ensemble work. So to get back to what James said about manifestation. So when I think of a project, when I think about doing a grant, when I think about moving to France, when I think about being here with the two of you and talking and being with the whole community and talking, I want to, my goal, because you all are the recipe, is to feed you. And I don't want to feed you crap. I don't want to feed you something limp that's, halfway rotten or, something that's kind of, I had to cut the mold off of the cheese and then I made you a grilled cheese sandwich with the part of the cheese that wasn't moldy. I want to pour into you because I also want to receive. And it's never a one-way street. It is this figure eight. It's this cyclical circle of, you know, I'm being nourished as well as you're being nourished kind of thing. So when I think about a project, I do think about the blue sky version. What's the best, version of this show I
Yeah.
can create? What are all the elements? I want high production values and I want it to have a message and I want it to have something to say and on and on. But what I really want is I want it to impact someone. And that can happen whether I'm in a black box theater that I've rented for $100 that night and I only have two cubes and, a frying pan or whatever it is, two cubes and a feather to, be engaged, or whether we've booked it into, the Mark Taper Forum and, we have a crowd of, 1,700 people there, right? So when we impact, it's like when one person lights another person's candle and then the whole world gets illuminated. We are
Yes.
one another's spark. So I also came to understand during my teaching time, the number of people that are in the room are the perfect number. So if we have this little talk today and 10 people show up, those are the 10 people that need to hear it. If 1,000 people show up, great, right? But when we chase the result and not the moment, I love, James, you said it in a way earlier about being present in the moment that was so beautiful. And I would butcher it if I tried to re-say it, but it is that gift of the presence, right? The moment of being present. So, so when I want to manifest something, I think about, the blue sky version, what impact do I want to have? And then because I'm a Virgo and real practical, I just get my feet in the mud and I'm like, okay, now brass tacks, what's it going to take to get this thing up? What's it going to take to do this? And like a good love affair, how can we be easy and in flow? So that the flirting starts over breakfast. And then by the time we've gone on and done our whole day, by nighttime, we're so ready to commune and be together, right? Because we've been laying these breadcrumbs the whole way. So, and, because I also have been someone who produces a lot, I sometimes start from the full-on event opening night, and then I work my way backwards.
Yes.
In some worlds of like pedagogy and teaching, I think it's called backwards mapping. I call it reverse engineering,
Yeah.
whatever. Wedding planners do it all the time. You start with the big event, and then you back it all the way up and see, okay, what is the timeline?
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing we all three have in common
Hmm.
is Melissa McFarland, who always talks about backwards engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
She's
So,
coached us all.
and I do believe also, there's that thought like if you can dream it, you can be it. And the whole like if you can walk, you can dance, and if you can speak, you can sing. Like, I also think it's not always about doing it well.
Mm.
Sometimes good and done is better than perfect and pending. We want to take,
Thank you.
yeah, we want to take action. We want to do it. And
Yes.
Valerie, you really talk a lot about that, which is not to say don't be prepared. Yes, be prepared,
Yeah,
but
but
also
just because a
act
lot of people are stuck
and
getting
come to
ready
some
to be
sense.
ready, you know?
Yeah, and we need to get out of our own way, which I'm guilty of that, because I can think the corners off of things too. Being a detail-oriented Virgo is a little tricky, but I do think in the grant writing world, I think that has really helped me because I do write grants for individual artists or an organization that provides arts programming. And so I look at a lot of that day job work and the great thing is it's flexible. So I can leave to go audition. Or, if I get a last minute audition that I have to do a self-tape, I have a flexible schedule. So that can be helpful too. But I think about all of the teaching artists that can be employed off this project, and that really makes me excited. And also in the world of grants, there's no free lunch. It's like you get a $500,000 grant and you think, wow, we have all this money. And it's like, and look at all the reporting you have to do to get, on the
Yeah.
back end and all the record keeping and all that. So, there's work involved like anything else. But, if it leads to your dream project coming to fruition or you being able to travel somewhere to take a class or to attend a voiceover workshop in Atlanta or to whatever it may be. I'm sure we have mainly actors on here, but there might be some other disciplines or maybe some people who are actors are also musicians or painters or, visual artists or dancers. But any creative endeavor I feel like, there is a funding stream, and there are also a lot of sponsorships to be had. So
Yes.
that's another interesting connection. And if you are someone and you need resources and you're a little light in an area, there you can go to the purveyors of whatever it is you need and let them know, okay, I'm buying this microphone. Could you give me a 10% industry discount on this? Or could you waive the shipping expense, or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
We never know unless we ask.
That we have a negotiating course in school, our biz school, and that's
Mm,
one of the first thing he says is like, just ask. Like,
yeah,
ask for what you want. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We have a
that's
we have a
right.
question.
Yeah, we do.
Sure.
Yeah, a big question. So I'm going to read it.
I can't
Hello,
see it.
Donna. I'm going to read it to you. Hello,
There.
Donna Jo. Thank you
Hello.
for sharing your gifts today. Her name's Adrienne. I am so moved. I take a risk here and go for something personal. I feel safe asking you this. As a fellow Virgo who thrives on awareness and alignment, also ex cheerleader, Greek food love, jazz singer, how do you spiritually handle a well paying job that drains your soul daily? Wait, I'm just going to say, Adrian, you have no idea who you're asking this question to. She's going to be able to help you because the owner is that drains your soul daily because the owner is a chaotic narcissist. I need it to fund the great things like attending Valerie's classes, but it feels like I'm feeding the wrong energy with this twisted job for now. How do I protect my light while I'm in it? Other than gray rocking detaching, so I can be present and have energy for myself and others on non-working days. Namaste, in limbo for now.
Okay. So there's three things I want to tell you about. The first is, if you want to, I invite you. A breathwork master that I work with gave me this little trick, and you can take it with you anywhere you go. And it's easy. It's hand washing. So when I get to work at my day job, one of the first things I do after I set my bags down and crate my dog, go to the bathroom and I wash my hands. And I let the water run over my hands, and I use that as a boundary that nothing in this place am I going to let stick to me and take out today. And if I need a break after a tough meeting, I go to the bathroom, I wash those hands, right? And it's nurturing, and it's a way to put us back in our body, back in the moment, and it's a little boundary internally that you're setting up. Okay, I'm letting go of that meeting. You can also, brush your arms off like that. You can brush down your whole front of your body, brush down the back of your body. You can do that quietly in a bathroom. Okay, these are little things, and you're going to invent whatever your own ritual is. For some people, it's brushing their teeth or taking a 5-second walk around the block if you have that. But when we work in challenging environments as creatives, we often pour out all our creative energy, and then we're like, wait a minute, now where's the juice for my own stuff, right? So the hand washing is the first one. Second one, I'm going to get up because I want to show you this. It's called zipping up your energy. Okay, can you see me up my body?
Mhm.
Well, okay. So the idea, when I zip up my energy, the idea is, now I'm not going to do this directly toward you. I'm going to do it off to the side. So the first thing we do, we rub our hands together. Then I'm going to take one palm. So this is getting my energy moving. I'm going to take one palm facing me and one palm facing out. I take a deep breath, and on the exhale, I pull my energy toward me and I push the other person's vibe away. So I take an inhale, reclaim what's mine. And then with this hand out here, I go down to my root chakra, or, down to your nether regions. And I'm going to zip my energy up and snap it out at the top if you want to. And this is a way to zip your energy up. I often do that as soon as I get into the office, because I want to keep myself intact. And when you work with crazy makers, and many of us artists have grown up in homes where there was alcoholism, big personalities, codependency, chaos, right? Many of us have grown up in a lot of dysfunction. So hand washing number 1 or walk around the block number 2. Zip your energy up. Again, rub these together. One hand in, one hand out. Doesn't matter, whichever feels best to you. Deep breath in, push it out, reclaim yourself, and then zip that energy up. Snap it out if you want, or just silent. And it's a shield that you're putting up around your energy. The third thing, it's a breath exercise. It's called a de-stressing breath. And what we do, it moves stagnant energy from the prefrontal cortex, and it opens the channel between the head and the heart. And a de-stressing breath, it's a cooling breath. So when things get hot, agitated, chaotic, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose. You can do it eyes open, eyes closed. And then when you blow out, it's like a whooshing sound, like you're blowing out a candle. So it sounds like this. Right? Do that a minimum of 5 times. You can do it 10 times, whatever. And you can even do it in a meeting and no one will notice. I can take a deep breath in. I can do it really subtly, right? So that moves any stuck energy, because so often crazy makers, at least it's been my experience, I try to figure it out, or I try to figure out, what did I do wrong? Or I did this thing right. Why aren't I getting credit for it? Or why is everyone around here walking on eggshells today, right? And people who are crazy makers, they love to keep the stuff stirred up, right? So I find the cleansing breath is really helpful to me, because I often clench and I don't necessarily breathe deeply. So breath work to me is a really grounding practice. So I hope that's helpful. Another thing you can do, I think you can write your own little mantra. Then you have a little sticky tape that you put it on your, on your computer, on your dashboard, whatever, before you go into the office. And there was a guy, what's his name? Peter something. And he was at John Lennon's wedding. Oh gosh, he recently passed away. He wasn't in the Monkees, but he might have been in some other band. But he had this great quote, and I ripped it from him. And it says, "I do a wonderful job in a wonderful way with the most wonderful people for the most wonderful pay." And that, to me, that is my goal. Because most of us, it's like, I've worked in every bar and restaurant in town, since I was 15, because I'm an artist and an actress and I'm going to make my way, right? I've done like most of us have done a million.
She was a good waitress.
Oh, I love waiting tables, because
I know, me too.
right? I love feeding people. So that works. Waiting tables was a great gig for me. And I've done it everything from like the greasy spoon to the high-end, fancy fine dining experiences. But I would say, remember not to pour yourself out too hardcore for a crazy, chaotic job. While you look for something else, I completely get it. If you have a gig that's nutty, but it pays the bills and you've got healthcare and it works well enough. So I would say this is the hard one. I haven't figured out how to do it. And when you do, I want you to let me know. Try not to give it too much of your mental energy. Just, like one of the things I've started doing, even though I love my day job and the grant writing is very purposeful, right? But it takes a lot of my creative writing time. And there's other things I do and want to be writing, right? So on weekends now, that's a no-fly zone now. It never used to be, but now it is. Even if it's a big project, I'm like, well, you're going to figure it out at the office. If you can't get it done in the office hours, tough stuff, like work smarter, not harder, because I need my weekends to recharge and for my own creative work. And what I have found is, also there's a quote that I just put on my refrigerator that's true. When I aim to do less, I end up doing more. And a friend of mine just turned me on to the book by James Clear. Many of you might already know it. It's been out for
Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah, that's a good book.
And at the end of chapter 1, there's a summary. And I have a friend who said this the other day in a meeting, and then I saw it at the end of that summary, which is, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So get a system in place for how you enter your work zone and how you come back out of it. One of the other things, as soon as I get home, I take off my work clothes and I put on my soft pants. Do something that signals that is over. The blazer is hung back up. The shoes are put away. Wash your hands, wash your face, transition. Give yourself transition time. and especially when we work in chaotic environments, give yourself a 10-minute buffer when you get into the office to close your door, unpack your stuff, get yourself settled, get you settled first. Put your oxygen mask on you first. I've said a lot. So, oh yes, get a
You, but you said a lot of fantastic. You said a lot of
Yes, a
fantastic
lot of
things.
said. I mean,
Um,
I talk about systems all the time.
Yeah, Valerie and James, what else do you all think about this? What else sparks in you? What's alive in you right now, as they say?
You pretty much said everything. I mean, I have to say that one thing that made me a good waitress and realized like when I got to my waiting job, that's what I was doing to pay my rent, was that I had a full day of doing shit before I got to the restaurant, which I know in this situation, she's working during the day, right? But I would go and do a drop off. I would mail a bunch of postcards. I would do all these things I was doing for my acting career. So when I got to my waiter job, I I was like, oh, this is just me paying my rent.
Nice. So you didn't resent the waitering job
No,
because you took care of you first.
no,
Valerie,
and I had a crazy boss too. I had a really
I'm gonna
I
rip that from
every
you.
boss I ever had at a restaurant was freaking crazy. Is that
And
not
in the
true, Donna
80s,
Joe? That is the
talk
truth.
about the
Oh my
cocaine. Oh
God, the
my
80s. The
Lord.
80s. Girl, I have stories. We need to do a whole podcast just about that.
We're lucky we
I know,
lived.
right? Like,
And what do you think, James? What else is coming up for you?
so a few things. One of them is that that I quickly realized that I'm not a good waiter, and and this is important. It's really important for us if we have a day job that is distinct from our acting job. In other words, if we're doing something to fund our creative self, we also need to think about as we're looking for that job or building that career into a career. There are a couple of thoughts about that. One is if we can, we want it to be at least in the direction of something that takes us towards our creative expression.
Mhm.
Another thought about that is that there are things we recognize about ourselves that are strengths, and things we might say are weaknesses or that are particularly uncomfortable for us. And it's
Mm.
okay for us to begin to ask the question: is this supporting me or is this derailing me?
Mm.
And I discovered that,
That's good.
I discovered about myself that I'm really good with tasks that require really specific thought and detail. And I'm not good when someone is over my shoulder, complaining.
Micromanaging you to boot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I discombobulate in that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if someone trusts me and gives me the space to do my work, I will deliver focused, focused, smart response. And so when I look for work that's not in the actor expression type of work,
Mhm.
I always keep that in mind. And I'm like, there are jobs that are just not right for me because I'm going to be unhappy and the other person's going to be unhappy. And this is that thing of know yourself, and it's okay, right? It's okay that we have strengths and weaknesses, or places where we experience particular discomfort, and where we excel, and it's okay to speak to that,
Mm.
right? Um, I mean, you said a lot, so I have a lot, I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, which is great because it's like there's so much that you said that, I mean, I kind of want to go back and listen to our own podcast to
We will. I'm
reflect,
going to write down all your wisdom little nuggets I heard you say.
well, listen to you. I want to learn the things you've said. Yeah, I mean
But it really is to thine own self be true. Like there isn't a thing wrong with like if I know that I work best in a certain environment, then I know what size shoe I wear. I know what I can, then I go and I look in the 6.5s. I don't waste my time in the tens because I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to flop out of it and then I'm going to fall and hurt myself or someone else. So it's like, no, go with what fits. It's really a kindness to ourselves when we say, I prefer to work independently with very clear instruction on what the deliverables are. Is that the kind of culture that you have at this establishment? And if the answer is, yeah, we sure do, or if it's like, oh, it's just all hands on deck all the time, that's what we're looking for, then I'm not your girl, because that's some chaotic, crazy making BS. And no, you'll find someone else who loves an adrenaline rush and, whose nervous system isn't shot, and they're going to go for that, and that's going to energize them. Good, that's a good
It's
fit for
all
them.
about learning
Go
how
with
to
God.
ask the
You do
right
you.
question. Like it's all about learning how to ask the right questions and put accurate info. Like when you're well branded and you're putting out a very distinct brand, you're only going to get stuff that's right for you back, because what you're giving is, so it's like when you can drive any kind of traffic towards you or away from you depending on the specifics of who you are and what's okay with you. And I think that that's like takes forever to learn. It's taken me forever to learn. Like we all want to just, have the phone ringing off the hook, right? And say, I want you, right? And how do we do that?
We think we want that. We think we want that.
Yeah. Well, yes, we do. You're right. We think we write that, but I'm saying if you want the right people coming to you, then you put out the right messaging.
Yeah.
There's another thing that you said that that I wanted to lift up also, which is you're talking about the do something that signals the change and the transition, and I believe that that's equally important for actors in a role, that we need to transition or de-role, to step back into ourselves. I mean, it can be really fun when we're playing a really, really sexy, witty character, right? Because it might be like, oh, this is bringing out that sexy, witty side of myself, right?
Yeah.
I'm a lot of fun to be with, But then what happens if we don't de-roll or we don't step back into ourselves? We can carry all the negative stuff of the character, all of the negative or difficult or challenging stuff into our private lives, into our, into our relationships. Or people can fall in love with a cast member because they're playing a love interest, and they can ruin their relationship at home because they've started a relationship with a cast person who's playing their love interest, and then they leave the theater and they're like, oh, this isn't a good relationship. My character fell in love with that other character, and I've allowed it to get entangled into my life.
Oh, how many times did that happen to you, James? You talk about it like you know it.
Oh, well, so okay, talk about revelation. So, it happened when it was in my 20s,
Me too.
and it happened, and it happened in a big way, and it was incredibly painful experience when I stepped out of it and came back to myself. I paid a huge.
I think it was Sir John Gielgud that said that's why they call it acting, my dear.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not real life. So we do have to be very clear about what is pretend and what is make believe. And when we're on the stage and doing powerful work, we can catch feelings for people real quick. And so we have to be mindful of like, okay, yes, this is magic on stage, but it's a different thing, right? It's not our day-to-day lives. And, the rush of, and that is why, so I think so many of us long for the stage is because it's a place where we feel safe and we feel alive. And it's a place where we can take risks. And we don't often take risks in our day-to-day life.
Well,
And
also because it goes from A to Z every performance. So you actually take the journey and do the release because it's always, balance, inciting events, climax, resolution, new balance, not the shoe, right? But that's really, text analysis in a nutshell. So we can let go of that. But I think, the big thing, what you're all talking about is processes to let go of stuff and transition, right? And I think actors can really fare from letting go quicker. Because actors get stuck at a no all of the time, and sometimes for fucking years. Sorry, actors, but sometimes you're like,
Yes.
he said no, he was supposed to say yes. Why did he say no? Like, just go, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. Like, get through them.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also like you use the word processes, and I think that I'm going to pick up on what you said earlier, Val, that it's rituals to let go, right?
Mm.
That
Mm,
we need rituals because it's a sacred. We're talking about a sacred space, and
yeah.
that's the thing about
And
performance.
what, I'm sorry to jump in. I just want to ask you, what do you do, James? What are your rituals to let go of a character, especially since you've, shared so deeply with us that you went through a painful experience previously with getting stuck in a character? Where are you now? How do you let go of a character?
So a couple things. One of them is that um, as a stage actor, we put on makeup and we remove the makeup, and so there's a ritual in that where where we where we actually go through the process of becoming the character and then removing the character. And I think that one of the things that happens in TV and film is that you often have somebody else dealing with your hair and makeup and someone else dealing with your costumes. And and and
Yep.
and we need to find a way for ourselves to create the ritual if some because it's about embodiment.
Yes.
Right. It's not enough to have somebody else clean your
Yes.
makeup off your face. I have a couple little stories. One of them is that I was in LA. I went in for a costume fitting for a film that I did, and the costumers handed me my costume, everything neatly stacked, and said, "You can, go, try it on, and there's the dressing room there, whatever." And so I went into the dressing room. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. The truth was that they handed me the costume. I began to take off my shirt, and they were like, "No, no, no!" Because I'm a theater actor. I'm used to like just stripping in front of the costumers. They're like, "No, no, no! There's a the dressing room." So I'm like, "Okay, sorry." So I go into the dressing room and I try on the costume and come out, and they're like, "Oh, great, thanks. That looks perfect." Blah blah blah. So I went back in the dressing room. Um, put my clothes back on, came out, and I handed them the stuff folded neatly. And they burst out laughing. And I said, "What? Like, why are you laughing?" And they said, "You must be a stage actor." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because you're treating your costume with respect."
Mm.
And they said, "Most TV and film actors would have just dropped it on the floor."
That's so funny. I always rehang everything. I used to have, when I did, made a living doing, regional theater and off Broadway in the 90s. I'd always have that spiritualness of the warm up for me, getting to the theater early and doing what I do. That's such that thing. I've really tried to transfer that a lot to film and television, by at least conducting that same sort of warm up in my dressing room or my trailer, wherever I am, because I feel like that for me, physical. Because how do I let go? I let go physical. Like, I'm great with exercise class, or, that's how I let go. So I think that warm up for me, and oh man, when I was doing my one woman show about J. Edgar Hoover, which you guys both would have loved.
Mm,
You
wow.
would have loved it so much. I jerked off as a man, a woman dressed as a man on stage. And there was a junkie that hung out
As you do.
at, well, I was playing J. Edgar Hoover. But anyway, there was a junkie that lived in the theater. And every time I got to that point in the play, he would like skedaddle, like I could see him in my line of sight.
Well, I want to share something
Yeah.
because, I saw in the in boundaries and transitions, there was a actor that I worked with once, and one of the things that he shared was that everything in his character always began with his shoes,
Mm,
with how he
Mm.
contacted the earth. And so when we're on set, whether it's a commercial shoot or whether we're doing television or a film, one of the transition things that I do is because, yeah, if someone else is doing
Yeah.
my hair and my makeup, and so, I don't have that like, me being a part of the transformation. And I believe, James, you said it's all about embodiment. When I put those shoes on and when I take those shoes off, that for me is a threshold,
Mm.
right? It's a
Yeah.
threshold that I've crossed. And so when I'm standing in those shoes, in my mind, I say I'm standing in this character. And even when I sit, what my character does with their feet is really key for me. And often, don't start feet. There's a Geico commercial I did, and it was a Pat Benatar concert, and you don't see my feet. But the heels I had on were so insane that it really informed my insane rocker girl character because the shoes were so insane.
Yes.
Mm.
And so for whatever ritual it is, if you're working on film, you at least get to take off and on the jewelry, you at least get to do your own earrings or tie your own shoes. So I would say any small avenue, and it doesn't matter what it is, for everyone it can be different. The makeup on and off is all that's a classic, and it's so
Yeah.
accessible. We understand it as stage actors. But yeah, I think anything that any individual chooses to do to mark their threshold, good on you. It doesn't matter, what you choose, as long as you choose something that's genuine and that supports you. This is really all we're talking about here today, is how we support ourselves as artists, whether that's, the tricky day job or the rituals we want to do to get in flow, or how we take a character off and on so we don't wreck our lives, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I want to do every audition in town. Well, I can't quit the day job and go do that, because I don't have my TV series yet. And when I do, then that will be the only day job. But like so many of us, we have to have strategies. We have to have, I think, it's beautifully said, boundaries and transitions.
And
Yes.
in the imagery and dream work I teach, I call it stepping into and out of character.
Mm-hmm.
And I take actors through an imagery exercise of actually seeing their character and then stepping into their character,
I've done it.
and then stepping back into the self
I
when we're
love
done.
it. I love it.
Which I love that, the shoes on and off is exactly that, right? We're stepping into character and we're stepping out of character and we're putting our shoes back on, right? Um, you
Yes.
know, so that's
And especially
lovely.
like for the kind of women that we're going to be playing in the and men that we're going to be playing in the near future, when they start making art about, they've already started, but they continue to make art about everything that's happening forever, we're
Yeah.
going to have to step in and out, y'all, because we're going
Yeah.
to have to go to some places of severe hate and anger and rage. And I actually enjoy
Fear.
it. I
Fear.
enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
fear, fear.
a great way for us to look at our own fundamental darkness is what we call it in Buddhism. But yeah, our own fundamental darkness. And when we have been in fear and allow people to be othered or people's humanity to be stripped from them,
Yeah.
that's when we're able to put people in cages. That's when we're able to dehumanize people
Yes.
and be so cruel.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
going to
think
be
we have to,
interesting when I'm playing one of those women, really, because I think that role is coming for me. Right. And so
I
when I'm
know it.
playing that, like, how do I go there? Like, it's going to be really interesting because, like, recently I've been, experiencing from myself and from other people in my life, like, how do you, um, how do you not argue? How do you not respond? How do you stay in the love and the light, but still move forward and help other people move forward? It's that. And for people that, and there might be people in your life that you are in business with that have that other thing, right? But they're helping you make money. So you're like, okay, how do I deal with this? Like, how do I respond to it? And like, today you've really inspired me to respond to it with love. right? Respond to it with just believing and holding up the right things because we know they're the right things, right? Yeah. And so you've inspired me to be that person today. Thank you for that.
Mm. Well, it's a
I want
big
to
circle of inspiration. What do you have, James?
I want to second what Valerie said. I have so many notes that I've written down so many quotes from Donna Jo.
Yeah,
Oh.
you were a good podcast. I'm so glad we finally got you.
Oh,
Right.
I am so grateful to be on here and let's talk again. Let's talk all things. It's really inspiring to be a part of a community where, we are, and again, this goes back to when I worked with Ann Bogart, who was the director at the City Company in New York, she talked about how we exist on two planes. We exist on the horizontal plane, which is the
Yes.
plane of being human and being earth, and then we exist on the vertical plane,
Yes.
which is, in spirit. And when they cross, they intersect, and then here we are right in the center of that intersection. In improvisation, Joyce Piven would always talk about how can we make the connection deeper and higher at the same time? How can we stretch ourselves as an instrument, as an artist? Right?
Yeah.
A bit like you were saying, when you play my instrument and I play yours, when we think about an instrument with string that's too lax, we're not going to hear a tone. If it's too tight, the string will break. When it's perfectly tuned, we have a perfect B or C or D or E or whatever, the note is. And so having that tension of knowing when to go deep, when to go high, how can we respond to people that, are really leaving humanity out? How do we respond, to all these challenges? And I think through art is a really profound way.
Yes. Yes. Okay. That is a really great place to end this because we can keep talking all day, but I'm flying to see my mom tomorrow.
Oh,
That's so
Yeah.
nice.
If you want to come to
wonderful.
Vegas, I'll be there, Donna Jo. Just saying.
You give Lois a big old hug
I
from
will. I will. I will. Because
such a
we
pleasure to
lost my other mother, my mother in law. And so I'm planning the service for that. So
I think I will be there virtually. I saw that
please
you're doing that.
do.
I'm really glad you
Please
are.
come virtually. I actually have Jordan who does work for me. You guys know Jordan. She's going to be letting people into the Zoom room. She's like, "Can I help?" I'm like, "Yes, you can." So
That's
perfect.
fantastic.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a great day. Thank you, Donna Jo. That was
Thank you.
amazing. Thank
Thanks, Donna
you.
Jo.
All right. Thank you. See you guys next time. Bye,
Much love,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.